distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the meeting to order. During this afternoon's session, we will proceed with the adoption of the reports of Saint Vincent and Grenadines, the Sudan, Hungary, and Papua New Guinea. And now we will proceed with the adoption of the draft report of Saint Vincent and Grenadines. The troika for this report consists of the representatives of Argentina, Malaysia, and Norway. I will now give the floor to Her Excellency Madame Bente Angel Hansen, Permanent Representative of Norway to the United Nations Office in Geneva, who will introduce the report on the UPR of Saint Vincent and Grenadines on behalf of the Troika. Ambassador, you have the floor.
I thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, dear colleagues, on behalf of the Troika, Argentina, Malaysia, Norway, I have the honor and pleasure to introduce the draft report of the working group on the UPR of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, contained in document A/HRC/WG6/11/L13 before you. The aforementioned documents reflects the discussions held during the interactive dialogue that took place with a delegation of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines on 10th May 2011, during which 33 delegations participated with comments, questions and recommendations. Mr. President, since the interactive dialogue on Tuesday, the delegation of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, together with the Troika and with the valuable assistance of the Secretariat, have worked in a constructive and very efficient manner to finalize the report. On behalf of the Troika, let me take this opportunity to extend our profound and sincere appreciation to His Excellency Ambassador Camillo Gonsalves for the effective and constructive participation of his country in this review. We strongly welcome the expressed commitment of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines to accept the majority of the recommendations. A number of recommendations will be further examined and a response will be provided to the Council in due time. We would also like to express our gratitude to all the states that participated in the review and paved the way for a comprehensive and very substantive interactive dialogue. It is a particular pleasure for me to extend the Troika's sincere words of gratitude to the Secretariat for their tireless efforts and professional work undertaken in preparing for the report on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. President, allow me to inform you of an editorial change to the document before us. In paragraph 78.26, the word decriminalize should be changed to repeal, so the paragraph reads, repeal all discriminatory provisions against LGBT people. With this, I'm pleased, Mr. President, to say that the working group, we are ready to adopt the document L13 as amended. Excellency.
Thank you. I thank Her Excellency the Ambassador of Norway for presenting the report, and I thank the members of the Troika for preparing the report. Delegations will have 2 weeks to make any editorial changes they wish to make to their statements in the summary section of the report. These changes should be transmitted through the Secretariat. Now, are there any comments on the recommendations in the report? I see none. The report is adopted as orally amended. I will now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Camillo M. Gonsalves, Permanent Representative of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines to the United Nations in New York, for his concluding remarks. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Ambassador Johansson, members of the Troika, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. At the outset, my delegation expresses its sincere appreciation to all the states that participated in the inaugural Universal Periodic Review of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. We are particularly appreciative of those states that either submitted advanced questions or took the floor during the interactive segment of our meeting. We are also grateful to the guidance and hard work of the members of our Troika, the Argentine Republic, Malaysia, and the Kingdom of Norway. The tireless efforts of the staff of the UN Secretariat were also invaluable in the completion of our work during the UPR process. Mr. President, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is pleased to report that the UPR process has exceeded our expectations. Through our enriching and interactive exchange with the Human Rights Council, we have gained a fuller understanding of the priorities and focus areas of the international community in the field of human rights. We are confident that the Council has also been enriched through our exchanges, and that member states now have a fuller understanding of the application and advancements of universal human rights within our own national context and social structure. Our government has been fortified by the warm expressions of support, solidarity, and recognition of the strides and efforts being made by Saint Vincent and the Grenadines in the field of human rights and the progress we have achieved in national development and the ennoblement of the Vincentian people. We have also carefully noted the constructive comments and recommendations from all states that took the floor during our dialogue. Mr. President, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines has conducted a preliminary review of the recommendations put forward during our 10th May interactive dialogue. I am pleased to report that 49 of the 92 recommendations advanced by member states can be readily accepted or are already in the process of implementation by the government of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. These recommendations include exhortations to continue our Herculean efforts to advance the lives of the Vincentian people through investments in education, health, housing, economic diversification, good governance, and the rule of law. We have also taken on board your suggestions related to the further protection of women, children, the elderly, and those living with disabilities. The recommendations related to violence against women and gender-based violence dovetail nicely with the current focus of the state. In fact, during the week that this UPR process has been taking place, the government held a two-day workshop with the police and civil society aimed at strengthening state accountability and community action for ending gender-based violence. In this and other areas, let me assure the Human Rights Council that Saint Vincent and the Grenadines remains steadfastly committed to protecting the human rights of our citizens and to advancing their right to development through diverse, multifaceted, and people-centered approaches to national progress. Mr. President, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is currently unable to accept some of the recommendations put forward by member states. These recommendations largely belong to two categories: those related to laws criminalizing sexual relations between consenting adults, and those related to capital punishment. Regarding sexual relations between consenting adults, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines notes that its criminal code contains a number of such provisions, which related to, among other things, incest, prostitution, public indecency, and buggery, which all apply equally to both heterosexual and homosexual conduct. Indeed, many of the states that recommended decriminalizing all provisions related to sex between consenting adults also currently criminalize one or more of these activities. Regarding capital punishment, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines considers this issue as reflecting a difference of opinion on the appropriate domestic policy approaches to issues related to crime and the protection of citizens, but not any disagreement on settled provisions of international human rights law. We note that Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is among a significant number of states that still retain the possibility of capital punishment in their legislations and constitutions. Indeed, the overwhelming majority of the world's citizens still live with and accept these provisions in their respective national contexts. We note further that the common law has so restricted the applicability of capital punishment in our country that there have been no executions in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines in over 15 years. Mr. President, there were a limited number of recommendations that were premised on an inaccurate understanding of our laws or factual errors. Some of these were rooted in a misunderstanding of our constitutional or common law approaches to discrimination, while others misstate or fail to appreciate crucial facts. For example, we reject most strongly any assertion that there is a pattern of discrimination against the children of any racial or ethnic minority in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. Similarly, we feel that any characterization of the size of our prison population must take into account the statistical shortcomings of such analysis, as well as the fact that our criminalization of certain narcotics and our geographic location between the major poles of the trade in illicit drugs and small arms will necessitate a certain number of arrests and incarcerations that would not occur in those states that are fortunately more removed from the front lines on the war of drugs, or that have taken a sovereign policy decision to decriminalize certain narcotics. Nonetheless, in recommendations that are either legally, factually, or analytically flawed, we have attempted in a spirit of constructive engagement to look past these shortcomings and instead consider the broader issue that we interpret the recommendation to be addressing. Our responses to those recommendations are therefore based not on an obstructionist or overly technical reading, but rather a generous interpretation of the issue being addressed. Mr. President, the brief time that has elapsed between the 10th May interactive dialogue and today's adoption of the draft report means that we have had to defer some of our responses to recommendations. Many of these recommendations require further analysis within our government and a more fulsome discussion with relevant stakeholders, including local civil society. For example, treaty signature or ratification demands a comprehensive study and discussion of the particular documents and the protocols mentioned, as well as an evaluation of the extent to which those treaties could be effectively or affordably implemented in the local context. The establishment of new bodies or the issuances of standing invitations require similar comprehensive study. Other recommendations require detailed analysis of particular local concerns that could not take place in the 3 days between our interactive dialogue and the adoption of this report. In those instances, numbering 26 of the 92 recommendations made, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines will provide a fuller response no later than the 18th session of the Human Rights Council in September 2011. Finally, Mr. President, many chapters of our history have been written in the blood, sweat, and tears of peoples whose most fundamental human rights and dignity were callously and brutally disregarded. That history has informed our modern-day abhorrence of any violation of basic human rights. Additionally, our continuing efforts to protect and advance our right to people-centered development, even in the face of a confluence of hostile exogenous factors, has further ingrained and entrenched a national ethos geared to the protection and advancement of human rights. We believe that we can be justifiably proud of the progress that we have achieved in our short history as an independent state. To be sure, there is ample room for continued improvement. The advancement of human rights is not a destination, but an ongoing journey of self-analysis, dialogue, and self-improvement. In this continuing endeavor, the Universal Periodic Review will play a valuable role. The Human Rights Council can be assured of the continued support and engagement of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines going forward. Mr. President, I thank you very much.
Thank you. I thank His Excellency Ambassador Gonsalves for his statement, and I thank him and his delegation for their active and constructive participation in the UPR review, and congratulations on the adoption of the report by the working group.